Welcome to the Winning Hand Podcast, a podcast about Marvel Champions, one card at a time. Welcome back. I'm Boom Guy, your host. I'm here today with Kaiko and Lazy Titan.
Hello there.
What's up, guys?
What is up?
Nothing much.
It's
Just
time.
Marvel Champions is what's up.
It's time again to talk about Marvel Champions. Now, this is our third episode.
The third episode. We're starting to streak now. This is a pattern now.
2 could be a coincidence. 3 is a pattern. Here we are. This is the third episode. So in case you are new and you found us by accident on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or anywhere you get your podcast, really.
Yeah.
Or if you stumbled on us on Instagram at Winning Hand Podcast, or stumbled upon us
At Twitter at Winning Hand Pod.
if you just happened to find us in any of those locations and a wild podcast appeared.
And maybe you left us a 5-star review and we're like,
Before
well,
you
what
even
should
listened.
I should actually know what these people are talking about before I leave my 5-star review, because now I'm lost.
This podcast has devolved quickly. Episode 3 is complete nonsense.
But now we can let you know this is the perfect podcast for you.
Yeah. Now we've hooked you, and now you're staying.
I don't remember what you were talking about.
A wild podcast appeared, and you are confused. You've hurt yourself in your confusion. But this is Winning Hand. We
That's
are a
Pokemon
podcast.
joke for you listeners.
This is a podcast about Marvel Champions, the card game, a living card game from Fantasy Flight Games. Each episode, we talk about a single card in detail as the card pool continues to grow with each release. Today, we are talking about Iron Man.
The ally. The leadership ally.
There are 2 allies and a hero, which we talked about last episode. Episode 2 is all about Iron Man, the hero. This is about Iron Man, the 4-cost leadership ally.
Iron Man is a 4-cost leadership ally, traded Avenger. He is 2/2, 2 thwart, 2 attack, 1 consequential damage each, 3 hit points, and he's got a special ability, which it reduces the cost to play upgrades on Iron Man by 1. So upgrades you play on him cost 1 less as a static ability, which is pretty cool.
That is a cool, unique ability.
Upgrades don't get used much.
No.
Only him and Ronan care about it.
And I don't think I've ever used them on Ronan.
No, I don't think so.
It's not good enough. So before we get into Iron Man, we are going to talk about what we've been playing lately. And this is a great segue for me because I have actually been playing this Iron Man ally. I played the Star-Lord deck. That's essentially a Voltron deck, putting all the upgrades onto Iron Man using Guardians of the Galaxy that draws you a card every time you put one on. And Iron Man makes them all cheaper, so basically all the upgrades cost 1 anyway, and playing that deck allows you to draw a card every time you put a free upgrade on Iron Man. Turns him into a 5 or 6 thwart, 5 or 6 attack.
With like 8 hit points.
Multiple readies, 8 hit points.
Very powerful.
It's a lot of fun. Star-Lord is fun anyway. He's risk-reward. Sometimes you fall on your face. Sometimes you have a great time. Sometimes you do both.
This deck is pretty consistent, though, for as far as a Star-Lord deck goes. In the build you had, he's the only Avenger, so you use cards like Call for Aid to find him, which means that you can always find Iron Man as soon as you need to.
I've been getting into Star-Lord lately. I've been playing him.
I can attest to that because I played with Boomer a couple of times, and he just can't kick off the drug that Star-Lord provides him.
That encounter card.
Every time he says that he's not going to take another encounter card, I look over and I see that he's already got 6 more, just waiting for him.
He's drawn up to hand size full of encounter cards.
I see him staring at the encounter deck every time, just scratching his chin, scratching his neck. Just
no fear in his
He
eyes.
just can't kick it.
I can't kick the habit. You know, every time I see other people play Star-Lord and they're playing and they think, oh, I'm going to take an encounter card, I say, hold on. You've already got an encounter card. You got 2. Slow down. Let's build the board a little bit. You're going crazy. And every time I play Star-Lord,
You got
I
4,
say,
5.
give me another hit.
Got that
Star-Lord's
hand
like,
size.
ooh, first hit's free. Then I pay for it.
And you pay for it
It's
every
a lot
time.
of fun. Kaiko, what have you been playing lately?
So I've been playing Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman. I love spiders, of course, and I think she's honestly my favorite hero to play, favorite spider to play. I love using 2 aspects.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
I am experimenting with leadership. I don't really play much with leadership. The only time I've played with it outside of this current Spider-Woman deck I have was with the pre-cons for Ironheart and Captain America. So I don't really have a lot of experience experimenting with leadership, so it'll be interesting to talk about this ally to see how I might be able to fit him into my leadership deck.
And for my part, I was playing Ironheart. That's what I've been playing most recently. I've been enjoying that quite a lot. Ironheart is so powerful and so fun to play. Managing those counters is very fun. It's very fun to manage those counters and upgrade your identities. As I mentioned on the last episode, I like the decisions and all the things you can do, which is why I like Iron Man. I also like Ironheart. It's a fun way to play. This episode makes me want to play an Ironheart deck with the Iron Man ally. See if you can make that work. They don't really synergize together, but it is thematically tied in.
You like Iron Man and Ironheart.
Mm-hmm.
If both of their hero cards were falling off of a cliff, which one are you going to save?
Ironheart.
Yeah.
No hesitation there.
No hesitation.
That
it was
power.
immediate.
The power is like the hit from Star-Lord, man. It's
just so
those
good.
counters.
It is all. Yep.
Those counters are so
She's so
nasty.
good.
You
Yeah.
just every time you spend 6 of them, you ready yourself, and then the second time you get a tough card for free. You just get a free
Insane.
tough card, and then later they're just straight up damage.
And they're not that hard to get.
No, they're not hard to get.
And once you find out, you're not limited to just one. You can just expend all of them.
Yeah, you can spend as many as you
Yeah.
want to. And what ends up happening is I get to my third stage, and then I'm just like, oh, I'll clear some schemes, and then I have 25, 28 damage stacked on my hero, and I'll just, the villain, we can kill him this turn because I just can.
They should be harder to get.
They should be harder to get, or they should maybe only do 1 damage. It's fun for the first 2 stages to like know when to flip down and get because you have to get to 6. They're hard to get early, but once you have that 6 hand size and the 3-2-3 stat line, you're running away with the game. She's just Iron Man, but very streamlined and much more powerful. And she has her resource card is a science resource which draws you a card and gives you a progress counter. It's so good.
Insane.
So
It is
powerful
really good.
because science resources is also something he cares about. But the drawing a card, it just is free and gives you a free progress counter. So powerful.
Yeah, I think that is where, for me, the game almost lost its fight with power creep. It was that
Ironheart
cycle.
and Nova,
Ironheart,
and SPDR,
Nova, the Spider Suit,
and
Miles
Spider
to some
Ham.
degree. Spider Ham was the kind of the
They
zenith
almost
of that.
broke it there.
I thought the power creep's getting out of
I
control.
think Ironheart's better than Spider Ham.
Oof, I don't know about that. Spider Ham is...
The Ironheart, the Justice deck I have, you can draw so many cards that like you're playing that card and it pays for a card, but you're just playing Nick Fury or you're playing Moon Girl to draw more cards, and you're just getting free counters, and you just like bank those counters forever.
I mean, she's
And
really
then-
good, but Spider Ham has access to all the spiders,
Oh, yeah,
which is an
man,
insane
yeah.
tribal
So,
identity.
because
Also, his just ability to keep all those counters on him to spend as wild
The
resources
spiders.
is
So good.
stupid. He's so good.
But yeah, that cycle
There was like
they pushed
4 or 5 in a row where I thought, "Ooh boy, I think the game is gonna."
We're really going out of line here. Nova, Ironheart, SPR, Spider Ham were that was a doozy.
They wheeled it back.
That's when they brought out Hone Technique too.
yeah,
Hone Technique came out with that set.
which almost broke the game. I thought
Yeah, it almost broke the game.
everyone
But
went crazy with aggression. decks
Symbiote
for a while.
Suit came out with Miles. Between
Mhm.
Miles and SPDR and Spider Ham, we got Symbiote Suit, Hone Technique. We got Nova, Ironheart. Like it was a crazy cycle. But
Yeah,
I like almost all those heroes.
they almost lost the grip for me.
They have kept
on
good
the
grip on
wheel.
the power creep.
But since then, I think they reeled it back in.
The X-Men are
X-Men
balanced.
have come down a little bit. I don't think it's as powerful. It hasn't gotten out of hand to the same
Mm-mm.
degree it was looking like it was going to. So that's good. Today we have Iron Man, as we talked about. So let's just segue right into it. Let's talk about Iron Man, and I'm going to turn to our resident art expert, Professor Keiko.
Awesome.
How's the art on this one?
As we keep mentioning every episode thus far, we have a little theory that we believe that if there's no illustrator credit, then it comes from a comic that exists, whether it's the cover art or the panel. But this one, we finally have a card that has an illustrator credit, so I think that this is custom art. And I think that's why maybe this is a little more detailed compared to the last episode of the Iron Man Hero, because they're able to just kind of focus on the art of this specifically. So I think it's very solid all around. The blending, the shading, the intricacies in the detail, and the posing still very much feels like Iron Man.
Yeah.
I think the head size is a little off, personally. I think it's like
Yeah, you
skin
mentioned that,
tight
yeah.
almost.
Mm-hmm.
It
Too
just
small.
it looks like
And
his
it
head.
looks like he has a huge neck.
Yeah.
I remember listening to an episode of Critical Encounters podcast, one of our Marvel Champions Brethren podcasts, and they did an interview with one of the graphic designers for the game, which is super interesting. If you haven't listened to that before, please go check it out. Critical Encounters podcast. I don't remember what episode it was, but they interviewed them, and they talked about how they built the panels for the cards, how they designed the coloring, all that kind of stuff. It's really good. In this one, for me, the art. Last episode, I said the Iron Man art was meh. And this time, for me, it decidedly falls in the meh category.
Really?
I don't love this. I think
your main complaint with the last one was the weird helmet, I thought. And this one
Mhm.
goes back to the classic.
it's a semi-classic helmet. His like weird sunken cheeks, which I
Yeah, it looks almost like a
don't
skeleton.
Like. It almost looks like a skeleton. His like body, I don't know. Something about his like midsection and legs just looks
his
weird.
one leg looks really weird and stubby.
Yeah.
But
I think it's a kind of a hiccup in perspective, but it's also just in general. So it is an Iron Man pose, but it does feel a little static in comparison to his hero pose.
It doesn't
the
feel
hero
dynamic
feels like
the
he's
last
flying
one did.
at you. This one
Yes.
feels like he's posing. I will say this suit is cool. I like it, but I feel like the Iron Man red and gold is pretty classic. I feel like we're
Mhm.
missing a lot of the gold. There's not that much. It's the faceplate, which is
Mhm.
kind of every Iron Man suit has
Yeah.
that. But normally I feel like the sides are all gold, but he's kind of mostly just red with a couple accents, which
What's
I don't
that
think
chest
I'm a fan
cut
of.
out? What are the holes in his shoulders? I don't know. Like, I'm obviously not an engineer. I don't know how the Iron Man suit works.
Neither is probably the guy who drew this.
You watch your mouth.
I don't know.
Okay.
Oh, an
I don't
artist
know things.
credit, by the way, is Gabriel El Tayeb.
Hopefully you're not butchering that, but
Sorry if we mispronounced that. If we did, please get in touch at Winning Pod on Twitter, at Winning Hand Podcast.
Please feel
on
free to
Instagram.
leave a
sue.
5-star review with your phonetic pronunciation, and we'll get back to you.
Back to the card. The art, I think, for me, it doesn't do much for me. It's Iron Man, yeah, but it just doesn't excite me in any way.
I think it's good, and I think one of the reasons I like it so much is that you don't see it very much. This is not a card that you play extremely commonly.
That's true,
So it's
yeah.
fun to just unless you're playing Iron Man or this ally, which you don't play a lot, it's fun to just see Iron Man. He doesn't show up a lot in a lot of art. So it's fun to see
That's
Iron
true.
Man. He's a classic.
And your eye just kind of follows the top half of his body anyway. You don't really gonna go downwards unless you're kind of looking into it in depth as we are.
The first thing you see is the gauntlet, and then you see the face, and that's all you need. Then you read the text, and that's all you need to see.
Yeah.
I will also say that the head and the gloves kind of are 3D and kind of come ahead of the name banner, which is kind of cool. They kind of cover it up a little bit, which
I
is
do
a
like
cool
that.
little bit of perspective.
Yeah. So in terms of the theme, though, I think this is a home run. I think it really
yeah.
nails the theme of Iron Man.
Yes.
It's a little expensive,
But
but
the payoff is big.
for a 2/2, 2 thwart, 2 attack, 1 consequential each, it only has 3 hit points,
I would have preferred it's 4, but the upgrades make up for that.
but his ability, reduce the cost to play each upgrade on Iron Man by 1. That is
and you only
so good.
You only really play this card if you're planning on putting every upgrade you possibly can on Iron Man, which makes that discount big.
The flavor text is, I've got an idea for how to make this suit even better, which plays into the whole thing about the upgrades. I think that's great. There's
That's
the
exactly what you
upgrades, like we talked about earlier, don't get used a lot often. They're not often in a lot of
No,
decks.
I don't put them in any decks unless I'm playing with this ally or the Captain Marvel ally from the Spider-Woman set.
Yeah, some of them
those
are
are
only
allies
okay.
you really want to keep around.
Or they're locked to Guardian traits, some of them.
A lot of the best allies are locked. So
Yeah.
those are like the only two that, and Spider-Woman or Captain Marvel from Spider-Woman is locked. So this is the only non-locked ally really that you would want to put all those upgrades on, and you get that benefit.
But some of those upgrades are locked to Guardians, like
Oh,
the
yeah.
Laser Blaster, right?
Which is part of the reason you played it in
Comms
Star-Lord.
implant is only,
Star-Lord, I think we've played this deck with a couple different people. I think Star-Lord is the best version of it,
Yes.
but you could make it work on it. Like,
You're probably good.
you just don't draw that free card, and you don't get all those Guardian upgrades.
It's great that it's leadership.
But it means you can only use the leadership upgrades. You can't really put like Energy Spear on it.
No,
unless
that's true.
someone else
That's
put
true.
it on there.
Are you allowed to play upgrades on other people's allies?
Yeah, you are, I think.
I don't
Because
know.
it usually says play onto any ally or play under any player's control. A lot of those upgrades do. So you might be able to, if I'm playing aggression, I can give you an Energy Spear or something. That could be cool.
Theme-wise, for me, this is a 10.
It's a
Like
10.
This just hits. It's Iron Man. It's constantly tinkering with the suit. It's making it better. It's constantly improving.
And his stat line isn't bad.
Searching through your deck to find new stuff that you can add onto your suit. Like, that just seems like classic Iron Man to me.
Plus, just not necessarily tied to the theme of the card, but the call for aid card that we use to find Iron Man in those decks does have Iron Man on it. Just a
does.
little bonus. And also, I will say, it is also a wild resource.
It's a wild resource.
Which isn't nothing. That's not often super relevant, but if you're playing someone like Nova or you just need a resource for something specific,
I feel like there aren't that many wild resource cards. Like, I
No,
feel like
not
most
that many
cards
cards
have one of the 3. They don't
not many
often
cards
have
are
wild.
So like Nova could use that, or like if you're if you're playing against a villain who you need to spend a bunch of resources to get rid of their upgrades or something, the wild's always nice to have.
Baseline stats of 2 with 1 consequential damage each, I think is really
That's
really
pretty good too. Yeah.
Often
They've
you
gone
get
away
2.
from that with the allies. A lot of these have 2 consequential now.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of allies can't get as many
I
activations
see a
anymore.
Corset card. It says 2019 FFG on it.
I think he came with.
Oh, that looks like Doctor Strange.
yeah, I think he came with
with.
Strange, which is pretty early. It's not
Because his
Corset.
pre-count was leadership, right?
Yeah,
Doctor
I think
Strange.
Doctor Strange. I haven't played Doctor Strange in forever for reasons. He's ridiculous.
There are reasons.
Never played him.
So this, I don't know. Art is underwhelming for me. Theme was a knockout. In terms of power, I think you just touched on it, Kayako. The 2/2 with only one consequential is really good.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's good.
But it's only 3 hit points, so that is balanced somewhat.
It is. I do think that's
It is
balanced.
balanced. It is balanced somewhat, but it means that because of those upgrades, once you throw those upgrades on there, it becomes very good. Once you get even just a couple upgrades, then he's got maybe 6, 7 hit points with 4, 5, 6 attack maybe.
Yeah, you can
4,
get him really
4,
high if you build
and
him.
a free ready because he's an Avenger ally, so you can use Sky Cycle. Like
Yeah.
once he's fully stacked, he's very powerful. He's a force to be reckoned with. It's like another hero.
4 is a lot to pay for an ally.
4 is a lot to pay for anything. Now I feel like I'm more open to it. I feel like there was a point. I think it was right about like we talked about earlier when Nova came out, maybe a little before that, where like 4 costs for anything felt unpayable. Like I wouldn't pay 4 costs for any card. Like 4 costs was just
Even Avengers Mansion, I don't really play anymore.
I would play Avengers, but like
Early on, that was a staple
it was
in every
stable.
deck.
I'll still play it in some decks, but the 4 costs for even like a card is good. That's +1 hand size or to someone else. But the 4 cost is so much. But I think in this deck, in the deck you're building around Iron Man, you pay it because that's what you're doing.
Well, of course, that's the whole deck is built around him. But in the
And
deck
then
that's not built around him, you know, he's
you don't play him in a deck. But then partially because that cost. If you cost
Right.
3, you probably would because of 3 that's just good.
yeah, 3 with 2/2. I think I'd probably play him.
He's just a good ally.
And you don't get a discount for being, an Avenger or whatever. Some of those expensive allies,
Yeah, some of the
especially the
newer ones.
X-Men,
Yeah.
give you a discount.
Some of those are really cheap. Then Angel's like 2, which
Yeah.
comes a little crazy.
He also doesn't
Storm.
have an ability like this.
Yeah.
Storm's ability, like that ability is nonsense.
No, it's not. It's not as good as this ability, and she costs 1 more.
If you're
Plus
an
5.
X-Men, she costs the same, right? Or a mutant.
Yeah, but
she becomes 4.
I
But her
would-
ability sucks.
If she paid 3, I might play her over Iron Man. Iron Man's better.
I don't know. This episode's not about Storm, but the ability to move threat to a different scheme most of the time is just
Is
a bad ability.
nothing,
Like
yeah.
I don't understand that.
I guess maybe if you're playing like Project Wide Awake,
Listeners, go ahead, chime in. Should we talk about Storm soon?
leave a 5-star review and let us know if we should talk about Storm soon.
Make sure you leave a 5-star review because I only read comments with a 5-star review.
We're actually going to transition this episode into Storm. We have her ready right now, so
Okay, so with that segue, let's go into Storm. We're just kidding. Kaiko's kidding. Let's
We
keep
would
talking
never
about
do
Iron
that.
Man.
We'd never switched up anything like
So in
that.
terms of power, he's pretty powerful. This is
Yeah.
a good ally,
Yeah.
but you have to build around
You have to
it.
build around it. It's not just a plug-and-play card that you can play with any deck. We played that game with your Star-Lord deck, and Iron Man never died.
No,
And he did probably 40 thwart and damage combined
he
over
did
the game.
so much. Yeah.
Just so much damage with 2 activations.
If you heal him and keep him out there,
yeah,
he's so good.
first aid to keep him alive. Like
Yep.
it just is a really powerful.
But
powerful
you do
card.
have to build the entire deck around Iron Man, or it doesn't make any
Mhm.
sense.
It doesn't make any
It's
sense.
not Nick Fury. It's not
If you take
Ironheart.
Iron
It's
Man
not
out of the
Maria
deck-
Hill, the
No.
goat of all allies.
If you take Ironheart, or if you take Iron Man out of the deck, it's not a deck. And if you take everything around Ironheart, if you put Iron Man in any deck, it's not a deck. So he really is. But I guess that's thematic of Iron Man, right? If you don't have the suit, he's just a guy.
Yeah.
He's not useless. Not useful without the upgrades.
It is an interesting dynamic to add to an ally, I think. And Iron Man ally does kind of feel like Iron Man, like you were just saying, Titan. Like you really do have to build around him, kind of building up to the suit or adding to the suit. Normally, other allies are just kind of self-sustaining, but with the Iron Man ally, you really do have to
You
build.
have to keep him alive. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
you can't
because-
block with him. There's
can't
no
know-
jumping.
Which is also another wrinkle to the deck. You just take up an ally slot, and you're putting a lot of resources into keeping him alive, which then you can't put into keeping you alive.
Yeah.
So-
well, in the Star-Lord deck, especially because Star-Lord can't defend for anybody, including himself.
And if you're taking 4 encounter cards like you are inclined to do, you start to pay for it.
The Star-Lord really brings the madman out of me.
And he also brings the cost of Iron Man down. Just making him a 1 cost with then free upgrades
Right.
changes the power
A
of
1-cost ally with an encounter card with free upgrades and Guardians of the Galaxy to draw
that.
those
So then
cards.
there are actually just cost 0 upgrades.
That deck is really good.
That's really good. But yeah, you can play him in other decks, but I
Yeah.
think Iron Man's solid. I think on a power scale, I'd give him a 7.5.
There are definitely more powerful allies, but there's a lot of less powerful
yeah,
allies.
like
and honestly,
Ronin comes to mind.
if you take the upgrades out of this card, and like you just put him in a leadership deck,
He's not bad.
There are still, I think, maybe some cases that I would play him, and there are definitely some allies I'd play him over.
Oh, certainly.
Like some of those other 4 and 5 cost allies, like Dum Dum and Captain Marvel, the 5 cost leadership.
She's
Spider-Man, Peter Parker, 5 cost justice.
Peter Parker. I'll stand up for Peter Parker. I think Peter Parker.
You get out of here.
I think
5 cost.
And specific cost requirement.
You have to play it. You can't play him in every deck. You have to play him specifically. But if you play him in the right thing, he can pay off.
We're talking about the Justice one, right?
Talking
that
about the
clears
Justice
5
one,
per
5
person.
cost. That clears. Is it 5 per person?
It's 5 per. Or is it 3 per person or 5 per person?
Maybe it's 4. We'll say it's 4 because it's about there.
Split the difference.
That if you're playing someone like Ironheart, who has a lot of cards, or you're playing someone like Scarlet Witch, who can cheat costs, or you have something like Meditation in your deck, it just gets rid of a side scheme. Like the ability to just play an ally who has 4 hit points, I think, and he's also a 2/2 to just clear a side scheme.
It's 3 per person.
Okay, that's still not.
Not
Saying
5.
playing
It
a 3-player
costs
game.
5.
Instead of playing a 3-player game, he takes 9 off a side scheme. That's most of them. And
I
if
mean,
it's not, it's like an important side
it's
scheme.
so
that you want.
situational.
Yeah.
Because you have a side scheme that only has 5 on it. You're not going to waste that, right?
No, but
Like
if
he's
you,
still a good ally, 2/2 with 4
yeah.
hit points. It's still good.
But if you play the one where you look for a side scheme and play it and draw 3 cards, you draw 3 cards to pay for that, and then you can play Peter Parker to clear it.
I don't know.
He's not great.
I think
I'm
one way or
trying
another,
to stand
right?
up. One way or another, that's what I'm thinking of. The Peter Parker is
We're not talking about Peter Parker right now. We're talking about Iron
Whatever.
Man. But there are other allies like even I have Black Panther, the leadership ally. I struggle to use that one.
outside of
Vision,
go all out.
the 4
Yeah,
cost.
Vision is rough.
Even
Falcon
Falcon used to be one I
Both
used
Falcons.
a fair bit. The original one,
and
the
the
core set.
Joaquin
I used to
Torres
use him a
one.
lot,
Mhm.
but it's 4 cost.
It
As
doesn't
more
do
allies
that
have come
much.
out, and Joaquin Torres, I don't play a lot of champion decks, so I
Yeah.
haven't really used
And
him much.
the cost
And he's not
of
that good. He's spent an extra resource
Mhm.
to activate
the
that.
cost. So does the Vision too. The
Mhm.
cost of allies is kind of lowered. Like
Yeah.
I'd any day of the week, I'd much rather pay 2 cost for a card like Maria Hill or Ironheart, or even 2 cost for a card like Hulk, than I would rather pay 5 cost for a card like Captain Marvel. Even though Captain Marvel's good, like I would rather pay the 2 for obviously Maria Hill because she's like one of the greatest.
The GOAT.
But like I would say second, but that's a thing for another day. But even those cheap allies, just the 2 cost ally line is so stacked and they're so much better. We say this every time we evaluate a new 2 cost ally. Every time a new one comes out, we're like, oh, is it good? It's just a 2 cost ally. It is good.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It could be a blank text box like Angel. It's just a
Or
blank text
Blade,
box.
or
And you just
Stinger.
play it because it's good.
they cost
'Cause
1, but
they cost 1, so 1 for a tough card is good.
of course. Yeah.
Like,
And
like
Victor Mancha and Clea, like there's so many
Yeah.
2 cost allies that you would rather play
yeah, Victor Mancha's great. And
just because they cost 2.
the investment for allies is it's rough to pay that much for an ally,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you have cards like Kalu and Ironheart and Maria Hill that are effectively cost 1. Like
Maria
the
Hill's the
competition's stiff.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about Maria Hill sometime.
I think she's second best.
The second best
For-
ally?
Second best ally in
outta
the
here.
game for a specific reason. Because I think
We're not
that
talking signature allies.
if we're not talking signature, then she's the best. I was-
Allies that can be put in any deck.
The ally that I think is the best is Miss Marvel from the Nova set.
And that's
But
because
if
she
we're not-
works specifically with his kit.
Yes, because she works specifically with one
If
of the best
she
cards in the game.
was a ally from an aspect that you could put in any deck,
She'd still
she'd
be
good.
good.
She wouldn't be that good.
No, she would
She
be that good.
specifically works with Nova.
Yeah, but that's why I think she's the best, because specifically she allows you to play Nova Force, which is one of the greatest cards in the game. But Maria Hill, as if we're not talking a specific like at any specific cards, Maria Hill's the best.
She's
so good.
This podcast is drunk. We're getting way off topic.
We're getting
here.
way off topic.
Thank you,
But
everybody, for listening in on our free-for-all episode of the season.
Free for all.
So I think overall it comes down to whether it's Iron Man or any other high-cost ally, it really is dependent on your setup.
Yeah.
Whether you're setting
What
up
you're gonna
for
do
that
with him.
specific ally,
Yeah.
or how I like to play is I like to play cards that you spend as resources, which would pretty much be the only time I would use those to pay for a high-cost ally.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like having my Quinn Carrier, Helicarrier,
Yeah.
Avengers Mansion, or Avengers
Avengers Tower.
Mansion, Avengers Tower, that's
Yeah.
what I meant.
Those big allies are expensive, but those upgrades, the thing with Iron Man is those upgrades are, if you're putting them on anyone else, they become really cumbersome. Like if you're playing them on Captain Marvel, or say you're playing them on Captain America, the 6-cost ally, like they just are the paying the 1 and then
Mhm.
also not getting a card back because you're not playing it in the Star-Lord deck
Mhm.
feels cumbersome, and it feels like a lot. The discount on Iron Man really does matter when you're building
Yeah.
that deck.
I really think some of those upgrades should be zero cost.
You don't
Like,
build them in anything else. You don't
No.
play them with anyone else.
You're already jumping through multiple hoops, right, to pay for the ally to get him in or her in play.
And have them out
Then
at
you
the
have
right
to
time.
draw into the upgrades
And if
and
you're not
put
planning
them on the ally.
keeping them around, then you have to have it at the timing.
Right. This is a lot of things you're already doing to get to the point where you have an upgrade on an ally. Then paying the one cost on top of it just doesn't really,
Yeah,
it's
a
the
lot of
X-Men
hoops to jump
introduced
through.
the upgrades, right? With training room and all that kind of stuff. Like
Which
that's
you
a
can
cool
get-
idea. You can get them on for
but
free.
only for X-Men.
Right.
So like you miss out on that. But I think you have a Captain America deck that I've seen you play a couple times, which is all about big allies, which is kind of fun. But
super fun.
Iron Man doesn't really. Or he might fit in that deck, but it's like you play the Captain Marvel ally and Giant Man and Goliath and all those kinds of things
That's the one where I use Captain America
Yeah.
to defend.
to
over
defend.
and
So you
keep
use
them
to
alive.
defend for yourself to use all those valuable allies, so you're not chump blocking
That's
with
fun.
them, which is a cool
But I didn't
deck.
use Iron Man.
No, you didn't use Iron Man because he is his own archetype.
And then
He's-
the cumulative cost, right, of the 4 plus the 1 plus the 1 plus the 1, it just becomes too much.
Iron Man makes it cheaper, but like then if say you're playing that deck and you have upgrades in that deck just in case you draw Iron Man, then they're useless unless you draw Iron Man because you don't want to pay the extra 1 on top of Goliath or on top of Giant Man or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, but he's cumbersome, but he is good.
So then in terms of fun, is it fun to play?
I think if you build around it, I think it's fun. I think just being able to like if you're playing with Star-Lord, you obviously get that replacement card, but even if you're playing with someone else, then you just get like playing Iron Man and the next turn drawing up and having a handful of 4 upgrades and then just emptying your hand on an Iron Man is cool and fun. And then you're like, oh, he's got 8 hit points and he readies himself, and then I can and then if someone else is playing protection, maybe they can slide you a med team to keep your
Yeah.
Iron Man alive.
Yeah.
Like he is a fun guy. And because you usually put Sky Cycle, that's a classic because that's a free ready. But then it makes the thwart output and the damage output of Iron Man really good, and you can use both. 4 damage or 5 damage, which is what like the maximum was when you built him, when you had played him last.
Yeah.
That kills most enemies.
Yeah.
We were playing with the Sinister Assault ones, so those ones are big and powerful, so they don't all get one shot. But like 5 damage kills most minions.
Iron Man was slicing through those.
4 threat beats a lot of side schemes, especially if you're playing 2-player.
Yeah.
Like it's a significant chunk of damage.
No,
And
it is
thwart.
good, and it feels fun. Like it feels
It's
fun
fun,
to play your ally and then
And it's a very different way to play the
ready
game.
him, and it's something you don't see a lot. So
Of
that's
just like caring about your allies
Yeah.
is a very different way to play the game, whereas most of the allies are just fodder to like draw you a card and then die. Which is a different way to play the game, which is it's interesting. Just be like, I'm gonna take the damage and I'm gonna defend for me while the allies do all the work.
that's one of my chief complaints of the game. I will say we've touched on something. The allies
Are so powerful.
they're really powerful, and the fact that they can block all the time makes them even more powerful.
The blocking. You never use the last activation because you can always defend.
The last activation is 99% of the time more valuable as a block to save you from damage than it is as one to 3 thwart or damage, right?
Even
3 at
3
the top
attack.
end.
Even 3.
Yeah, unless that kills somebody or whatever. So I just think most of the time you're putting allies out just to have them die, and that doesn't feel super thematic.
But they're getting cheaper too.
I like the decks where you put allies out at the idea of them staying out there or recurring them somehow. I think that feels more thematic to superhero teams.
I haven't played a deck like that, but I've seen you play a couple of them, and it is fun. It seems like it's a fun way to play.
It's different. I like to mix it up. I like to play different ways, and just putting out spamming 2-cost allies so they can eat
Just playing
an attack,
Armor
like,
and Polaris and Colossus to have infinite tough cards is fun, but it is
But it's fun to put out Goliath or Captain Marvel, those big ones that you invested so much in. You want to keep them out there then, and then using things like Avengers Assemble or Mass Attack or whatever.
But even then, for that deck, there are slim pickings for what allies you're picking out. Iron Man's not on that list.
No,
Black
not often.
Panther, increasingly, I wish he didn't take 2 consequential damage for both sides.
He's not very good.
He's not very good. You get
No.
1 activation out of him, but like he draws you a card maybe. So like that's, I don't know. That's a fun archetype, but it's limited because the allies are getting cheaper and the big ones are getting worse.
So for fun, for me, I don't know, 6.
Yeah,
If 5 is true neutral, it feels like a 6 for
it's
me.
a 6. It's a cool archetype, and it's not bad.
No.
But it isn't. it's not like super fun.
Keiko, what do you think?
So I'm looking at this as two different ways. One, just kind of throw him out there as just any other ally, and then the other being building him as the Iron Man ally. It seems like it might be fun to build him around getting him upgrades and buffing him, especially with the way I like to play Jessica Drew. Maybe I'll have half leadership being fully just stacking up Iron Man, with aggression being stacking up her, and it's just kind of a tag team dynamic.
Even in Jessica Drew, Captain Marvel, which is her signature ally, is I think the other ally that you would build a kind of deck like that around, of like just like a Voltron style.
She's good.
And then if you have them both, you can do whatever one you want.
Exactly. And again, that kind of goes into how I like to build decks, which is my setup. I like to have resources. So I already put in these high cost allies anyway because I plan on building up to them. Like in my deck with Spider-Woman, I have Tigra, Lady Thor, Captain Marvel. I had Wolverine at one point, but I swapped him out. So I don't mind having these high cost allies.
And they're definitely playable.
I mean, I don't follow the meta of the game all that closely, but if you read through Marvel CDB, I think you will rarely see allies that cost a lot.
No.
Mostly people are playing cheap allies.
Armor.
Armor's
Polaris.
brand new.
Armor's so good.
Or fairly new. But Ironheart, Maria Hill,
stuff.
those are
Kalu,
staples.
Stinger,
Anybody two cost.
Blade.
Right? Yeah.
Ant-Man and Wasp. Like the cheap ones just to throw out there.
Yeah, I see a lot of Ant-Man. Zero cost. All those. I don't know. It's something different. I do like to build things thematically. I don't just like to... I'm definitely not one of those people who reduces it to a math exercise of,
I don't care that way.
X damage for Y cost and, Z thwart for Y cost. Like, I just really... That ruins the game for me. People see them post online. I see them post, this basically math formulas of, like, how you've calculated this tempo and I just can't. That just ruins it for me. I don't want to feel like I'm doing math homework.
Like you were saying, Keiko, the Jessica Drew is uniquely kind of perfect for that. She's one of the better heroes for that because you can finally use those other aspect cards you never get to use, like Energy Spear, and I don't even know if there's a Justice one, but there's maybe Protection one too, or maybe even Protection.
No.
They're really only in Aggression and Leadership, but you only ever get to use the leadership ones unless you're playing Jessica Drew or maybe Adam Warlock, I guess. But like, I think that's a fun way to do it. Of like,
I like leadership too.
Yeah,
I know you're not a big leadership
I don't
guy.
play a lot of leadership. The only time I ever play leadership is when I play Go All Out.
It's my second favorite aspect.
I just don't play a lot of allies. I find myself often
No,
when I build
you
a deck, I build a 40-card deck, and I'm like, oh, it's perfect 40 cards, and I look and I have put 0 allies in it, or maybe one. I just don't play them that often.
What about you, Keiko? Leadership, allies generally? What do you think?
So I'm only recently kind of getting into the more ally play. The last time I played her, I didn't really get a chance to put out a lot of allies, but I am trying to build around allies. I put in the Triskelion, the Avengers Tower. Generally, I'm just building an Avengers deck, so I could theoretically just throw Iron Man in there just on his own.
You could put some upgrades in there to fit.
Yeah, but I have team building. I have Avengers Tower, Avengers Mansion, Helicarrier, so that's the way I like to build. So I'm trying to get into it more. At some point, my goal is to get, 6 allies out at a time with all those buffs.
It's the absolute maximum you can have.
Yeah,
we can get to...
I think I've done it before. When I
with
played
Stinger as the 6th
Stinger,
one.
and then you use I used the one where you exhaust them all. That was a deck I played where I had a lot of allies because you just throw them all out there, and then they're just nothing. They're just a way to draw cards. Then you draw into your... Because I played it with Black Panther, so you can draw your Wakanda Forevers a lot. And
you can play strength in numbers. And
yeah, that's what I'm talking about, strength in numbers. That's probably the last time I drew a lot of... That's probably the last time I played a bunch of allies. I just don't really do it.
Yeah. The thing about getting the 6 allies out, like you talked about, is that then you would be able to play, potentially, Captain America for free, except you can't have a 7th ally.
But you have to do the most un-Captain America thing, which is sacrifice somebody else to play Captain
You're
America.
not sacrificing. You're sending them behind. You're going to the front lines. Cap got you. You can get to the back, take a rest.
With
some
6
water.
allies, there's likely someone in there who's got 1 HP left anyway. So
certainly, but I guess I hadn't even thought of it that way. I play Magic, and for me, it was always just like, that person's dying, and
don't
Captain America's
besmirch
killing them.
the good name of Captain America.
No, I see that. I see the theme of that more. If Captain America be like, oh, go back, I'll take this.
Yeah,
Captain America ally, pretty solid.
He's solid. He doesn't have enough hit points.
But the tough card.
The tough
But
card.
he also costs 6.
I mean, he never costs 6, right?
He never costs 6, but like
You get him 3 consistently.
yeah, but
probably.
3 is. I think he's a fair 3 cost.
Yeah, I think he's 3 costs. He's solid. Yeah, so I mean, leadership is probably my second. Not probably. It's definitely my second favorite. I'm
Really?
a protection player. I'm
Ah,
a
well,
protection
yeah.
player all the way. You guys know this.
Through and through,
Yep.
to a frankly almost worrying degree.
I
Sometimes I like can text you late at night and I hear you eyes red, coffee cups everywhere, building every protection deck you can
I show up to game night and I've
with
got
4 protection decks.
5, 6 protection decks. Valkyrie protection, Star-Lord protection.
We went to the Con of Heroes last year and we ran out of protection cards for a lot of our decks we were trying to build.
Yeah, because I build everybody Hawkeye protection.
It doesn't matter. Any
The Hawkeye
hero-
protection deck worked. The Valkyrie protection deck was nonsense.
I've built it before. It does not work.
That's your no. Kennedy Hawk from the Marvel Champions Monthly podcast. Back me up. Hawkeye protection. It works.
I think Kennedy Hawk will not back you up there because Kennedy Hawk famously dislikes protection. Although his love for Hawkeye is great,
It might
his
overrule
hatred of
his
protection.
disgust of protection. I'll have to ask Kennedy Hawk. Leave a comment and a 5-star review.
It's like covering a pill in peanut butter to give your dog. It's like kind of washes it down. It's a spoonful of sugar. Wash it
Pill
down
and
with
peanut
Hawkeye.
butter.
But not to besmirch our fellow podcasters.
Yeah, I'll have to see what Kennedy Hawk thinks about that one. The pill and the peanut butter.
Don't quote me on that. You said that, not me.
All right. So overall, Iron Man, the ally. Let's just kind of give our scores. What do you think?
I think overall, I give him a 6.5.
Ah.
5 being true neutral. He's
Okay.
just a little bit above average. If you build around him, he's cool. If you don't build around him, he's pretty disappointing. That's it. Art's fine. Cost is decent. He's a wild resource.
Yeah, 6.5. I mean, solid. If we're saying again, 5 is true neutral, right in the middle, not a failure.
Even if I don't build around him the way I play anyway, he kind of still works for me. So I would give him 7.5.
7.5. That
Yeah.
seems good. I'm gonna agree with you. 7.5 for me.
Yeah.
He is a unique archetype within allies that, other than Ronin, I can't think of another
But you don't play Ronin. You play Iron
ally.
Man.
But I can't think of another ally that rewards you or incentivizes you to play upgrades.
I do it with Captain Marvel because she draws you the card, but she doesn't incentivize you to do that.
The signature.
That's just a way to use it. Yeah, signature
ally.
Captain Marvel from Jessica Drew.
That's really just a way to prolong her
because she's really
more
good.
than anything. Yeah. It's
Whereas,
card draw.
whereas with Iron Man, it's about boosting his stats and stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's a unique archetype, which I think we could use more of.
Yeah, I would not. I would
and
like to see more upgrades.
I honestly wouldn't mind if he maybe said that upgrades you play on all allies, just to kind of push that archetype a little further to make it so you can do a little bit more with that.
I would like to see more upgrades in different aspects, especially.
More different upgrades in different aspects and more reasons to play them. More allies like Iron Man.
Because
Maybe-
why can't we have an Iron Man in every color?
Yeah, give an Iron Man every color. They don't all have to do the same thing, but a similar thing.
No, but
Maybe
something.
a protection one that gives you +1 defense for the round whenever you play an upgrade on him. Or, I don't know,
Yeah.
give us a Justice Iron Heart who does something with upgrades. Give
Sure.
us a SPDR. That's sort of similar. Like, just do whatever.
I would like to see
Iron
That'd be really
Spider.
cool. Because there's Peter Parker's in different aspects, right? You
I
could-
was going to say I would like to see Peter Parker leadership or even Spider-Man 2099 leadership or really just any spider leadership.
You are just a spider head.
Just wanna see
You're a little
spiders.
spider.
Any
I would-
spider aggression would be nice too, please.
Yeah, spiders
aside
are
from one.
only Justice and Protection, which,
No, there's spiders
I like-
in protection.
yeah, Justice and Protection is all
Yep.
they're in.
Oh, well, the Spider Girl in aggression.
Oh, yeah, but she's
Spider
not
Anya.
she's not a Web Warrior.
She's not a
she's
Web
just- She's
Warrior.
one of the originals.
Just adventure.
I'm an aggression player, so spiders don't often fall under my
Nope.
my web.
And or allies that you just talked
No,
about.
true,
Like,
also
there's a bunch
allies.
of good
That's
aggression
probably why
allies
I rated
actually
it
that you never
lower.
play.
Yeah.
Throg and Bug and
I
Hulk
play-
and
I
Wolverine
play,
and
there's actually a lot of very good 2-cost allies. Locust is one of my favorites, but I don't play champions.
there's a
that
lot
often.
of really good
Hulk is very powerful.
allies.
Throg
in
is really
aggression.
good.
Bug.
Bug is very good.
There's some really good ones. Wasp even. Wasp is really
Angela.
good.
Angela's one of my favorites.
Angela's your
I like
favorites.
minions,
Yep.
but she's also free.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of good allies in protection
But
or in aggression, but you
if
don't
I
play
was ever gonna build around allies, it'd probably be Iron Man.
them. I think Iron Man, the ally, is good, not great.
Yeah.
But good.
It's
Pretty solid. I mean, even just 2 thwart, 2 attack, 1 consequential each is just amazing on its own, I think.
Yeah, for multiple
that's very solid.
activations. Yeah, unlike White Tiger, who only has 2 hit points, so
But
really
she
a
draws
single
you cards.
activation. Right, but that always gets me every time I see 2/2 and then 2 hit points.
Mhm.
Ugh.
Yep.
It's better than Black Panther, though. Actually, it's the same as Black Panther.
But just seeing the 2 consequential icons just is
I know.
bad. It
White
just
Tiger
feels
and Black
It
bad.
Panther
ruins the
have
card, I
White
think.
Tiger
I
and
would've
Black
never
Panther
played.
have the same stats. They have effectively the same amount of uses, but they just feel so different.
All right, well, thank you for joining us for another episode of Winning Hand, the podcast about Marvel Champions, one card at a time. You can find us where?
On Twitter, Instagram, Grindr.
Not that last one. Apple
This
Podcasts,
is a family
Amazon
show.
Music.
This is a family show. Okay, go. Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere you get your podcasts. You can also find us on Instagram at Winning Hand Podcast or Twitter at Winning Hand Pod. Feel free to reach out. What do you think about Iron Man? Do you agree with us? Do you hate him? Do you love him?
Do you hate us
Tell
for our
us
opinions?
all about it. Do you
if
hate
you do,
us?
leave it in a 5-star review.
If you hate us and you're still listening now and you give us a 5-star review, then I will give you a 5-star review.
And a high five.
And the highest of 5s. That's going to do it for us.